Houston rose with the sun, a wide sprawl of shimmering glass buildings, humid air, and ambition that pulsed like a heartbeat. For Michaela Johnson, 28 years old and sharp enough to cut through any challenge in the tech world, the city had become more than her home. It was the proving ground her father had spent her entire life preparing her for. Her father, Derek Johnson, the quiet and commanding founder of J-Tech Systems, believed deeply in the value of earned success. He loved Michaela, but he refused to hand her anything that resembled an easy path. From childhood to adulthood, he instilled discipline with a steady hand. When other children at her school bragged about new bicycles, expensive gadgets, or surprise birthday gifts, Michaela learned the comfort of a simpler reward. Work hard, show kindness, stay grounded, and one day, the rewards would matter more. Yet there was one tradition he never altered. Every Friday from the time she learned to walk, they shared ice cream together. No matter what he was facing at work, no matter how many meetings ran late or how many deadlines hovered, he always met her at Sweet Cloud Creamery. As a child, she would run to him with her small legs pumping, and he would lift her into his arms, smile, and ask the same question. "What flavor today, KK?" As an adult, Michaela arrived from work in her business slacks and blazer, and he would be sitting at their favorite booth at the back. He still asked the same question. She still smiled the same smile. To the outside world, Derek was the untouchable CEO of a thriving firm that specialized in network security and data infrastructure. To Michaela, he was the father who taught her how to live a life she could be proud of. When she graduated college with a degree in software engineering, Derek could have placed her anywhere in his company. A high-ranked role, a cushy salary, a private office with frosted glass. Instead, he put her through the same application process as everyone else, reviewed her code samples with the same scrutiny as strangers, and hired her as a junior technician. Michaela welcomed the challenge. She wanted to prove something not only to the world, but to herself, that she was worthy of the work she dreamed of doing. At J-Tech Systems, no one knew she was the daughter of the man whose name towered above the downtown skyline. She did not mention it, and Derek certainly did not. The Johnsons had years of practice keeping their personal life personal. Her direct supervisor was Malcolm Reese, a man in his early 40s with a stern demeanor and a reputation for being difficult but technically gifted. He believed in hierarchy, structure, and the importance of doing everything by the book. On her first day, he welcomed her with a clipped nod and a list of tasks. "You complete these on time and with accuracy, and we will get along fine." Michaela did more than that. She excelled. Every ticket she closed was documented with precision. Every project she touched became smoother and more efficient. She arrived early, submitted work ahead of schedule, and asked insightful questions. She gave the department more value than any hire Malcolm had trained in the past 5 years. Weeks passed, and her performance metrics outpaced her peers. Her department head, Sharon Blackwell, began to take notice. And quietly, without ceremony, something significant happened. A 10% raise appeared in her payroll, approved by upper management based on her contributions and project outcomes. Michaela was thrilled, but kept her excitement hidden behind professionalism. She had worked hard, and someone had recognized it. That alone felt like a victory. But Malcolm noticed the salary increase as well. As a manager, he reviewed his team payroll monthly. Her new rate stood out to him sharply. His eyes narrowed as he sat at his desk, staring at the numbers. Something about the situation tugged at him, but he could not immediately place why. She had earned it, that was clear from her performance. Yet Malcolm felt a prickle of suspicion. Raises of that size usually required several formal evaluations and recommendations. But this one had been approved quietly, directly from above. Something in the pattern felt out of place. His curiosity grew. Curiosity soon hardened into unease. Unease transformed into a need for answers. It was this need that pushed Malcolm to pay more attention to Michaela, to watch her interactions in the office, to question how she seemed to glide through difficult tasks that had tripped up others. Nothing he saw appeared unusual, but the thought of special treatment burrowed into his mind like a splinter. Then came the moment that lit the match to everything that followed. It was a warm Friday evening. The sun was low, washing Houston in a golden haze. Malcolm had stopped by Sweet Cloud Creamery to pick up a dessert for his niece. As he scanned the shop for a quiet corner, he froze. There, in the back booth, sat Michaela. And across from her was Derek Johnson himself, the CEO, leaning back comfortably, laughing softly as she talked. The scene held the relaxed ease of a bond years in the making. To Malcolm, the meaning was immediate and explosive. He turned without a word, the truth forming sharply in his mind. Michaela was connected to the top. Michaela was protected. Michaela was, in his eyes, a symbol of rampant nepotism. Malcolm drove home that evening with a storm brewing inside him. The image of Michaela and Derek sharing ice cream refused to leave his thoughts. He gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles ached. His mind replayed every interaction he had ever witnessed between them at the office, searching for hidden meaning. He convinced himself that he had uncovered a secret that explained everything about her work ethic, her confidence, and even her raise. The next Monday morning, he walked into J-Tech Systems with a new lens through which he viewed every part of the department. To him, the neat rows of desks, the sound of clicking keyboards, the soft hum of buzzing servers, all felt overshadowed by a truth he believed he had uncovered. A truth that, in his mind, changed everything. He did not confront Michaela directly. Instead, he planted seeds. He would make offhand comments with careful timing and tone. Some people have connections in high places, he said during a break room conversation with two analysts. Some promotions and raises do not come from performance alone, he murmured, while reviewing task schedules with a technician. Some folks are brought into this company for reasons that have nothing to do with skill, he said as he passed by a group discussing upcoming project deadlines. At first, his coworkers barely noticed. They nodded politely and went back to their work. But Malcolm persisted. He repeated his thoughts with more detail, more implication, and more suggestion. He never used Michaela's name, but he glanced in her direction often enough that people began to connect the dots. Rumors have a way of gaining weight the more they are echoed. Soon, the words nepotism and favoritism drifted through the department with quiet force. Michaela remained oblivious at first. She focused on her tasks, unaware that some coworkers now whispered when she walked by or exchanged looks when she presented brilliant solutions in team meetings. Malcolm, growing bolder, began altering her task assignments. Instead of complex problem-solving and integration projects she excelled at, he slipped more menial tasks into her queue. He assigned her server cable checks that interns normally completed. He gave her repetitive configuration updates that could easily be automated. He asked her to prepare documentation for projects she had no involvement in. Yet Michaela handled each task with calm and precision. She arrived early, stayed focused, and completed everything with accuracy. She did not argue. She did not question him in front of others. She simply performed at the standard she had always maintained. This only irritated Malcolm further. He expected her to show annoyance or defiance, something that he could point to as unprofessional behavior. But she gave him nothing. One afternoon, the department was invited to present ideas during a strategic development meeting with upper leadership. It was an opportunity for team members to demonstrate their vision for the company and propose improvements. Michaela prepared a detailed presentation on optimizing network performance using adaptive security layers. She had spent days refining it. Malcolm attempted to exclude her from the meeting by telling her she could sit this one out and focus on server labeling in the Western Wing. But Sharon Blackwell intervened. "Michaela, you submitted an excellent proposal," Sharon said in front of the room. "You will present it." Malcolm stiffened, frustration building in his silence. The meeting took place in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the skyline. Executives filled the seats, including Derek, who sat quietly near the back. He kept his expression unreadable, just as he always did when Michaela was working. When Michaela presented her proposal, the room shifted. Executives leaned forward. They asked questions. They took notes. Derek did not speak or signal anything, but even he could not hide the small spark of pride in his eyes. When she finished, the executives exchanged glances. Sharon gave a subtle nod. "Impressive work, Michaela," one of the vice presidents said. "This is exactly the kind of innovation we need moving forward." By the end of the meeting, it was announced that she would be promoted to lead a new performance optimization unit, a role that placed her directly above Malcolm. The news traveled through the department like a jolt of electricity. Some nodded knowingly, believing this was confirmation of Malcolm's whispers. Others were genuinely supportive, recognizing Michaela's skill. But Malcolm reacted with barely contained anger. He stormed into the break room and spoke loudly, ensuring everyone could hear. "I knew it," he said. "This company is full of nepotism. People are promoted because of family connections, not competence. This place is not fair to those of us who actually work hard." He paced with dramatic gestures, spilling bitterness into the room. "I guarantee she has been protected from day one. I guarantee someone at the top is pulling strings. Promotions like that do not happen without hidden hands guiding them." Coworkers stared awkwardly, unsure how to respond. Some lowered their gaze. Others whispered uneasily. The tension in the air felt thick enough to choke. Then, the break room door swung open. Derek Johnson stepped inside. He had heard every word. Derek Johnson did not raise his voice when he entered the break room. He did not need to. His presence alone commanded the attention of everyone in the space. Conversations died instantly. A hush fell so sharply that even the hum of the vending machine seemed to quiet itself. Malcolm froze mid-sentence. The color drained from his face, and the righteous anger that had fueled his outburst collapsed into a stunned silence. He turned slowly, realizing that the CEO himself had heard every word he had spoken. Derek looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each employee before settling on Malcolm. "You seem to have a great deal to say about our company," Derek began. His voice carried a calm sharpness, like steel wrapped in velvet. "I believe you owe everyone here an explanation regarding these accusations of nepotism." Malcolm opened his mouth, but no words formed. His throat tightened as he struggled to find a response. Derek continued. "Let me be very clear," he said. "If you want to keep working at JTech Systems, you will perform at the same level as the employees you criticize. You will meet the same standards, and you will remember that respect is a core expectation, not an option." Several coworkers shifted uncomfortably. A few glanced at Malcolm with widened eyes. Only Derek remained perfectly still, waiting. Malcolm finally swallowed and forced out a weak response. "Sir, I only meant that some promotions seem unusual. I simply voiced concerns that others might have." Derek raised an eyebrow. "Concerns based on what facts?" Malcolm hesitated. He could not mention Sweet Cloud Creamery without revealing he had been spying on personal moments. He could not admit that his assumptions were built from a single out-of-context scene, and he certainly could not present evidence of favoritism because there was none. "I noticed a rapid raise," Malcolm muttered, "and a fast promotion. It seemed irregular." "Irregular," Derek repeated. "Or earned." His tone remained steady, but the weight of the question pressed heavily on the room. Malcolm did not answer. Derek let the silence linger before he spoke again. "I have reviewed your department performance reports," he said, "and I have also reviewed the tasks you have assigned over the last 6 weeks." A ripple moved through the room. Malcolm blinked, taken off guard. "You gave one of our highest performing employees low-level assignments that did not match her skill set," Derek said. "You assigned busy work that slowed progress in your own department. Your decision-making has negatively impacted our workflow." He stepped closer, never breaking eye contact. "If you believe in fairness, then you must first practice it. You must treat your team based on merit, not personal theories that have no basis in truth." Co-workers exchanged glances. The truth, laid bare, made the air crackle with tension. Malcolm's voice tightened. I was only trying to maintain order. Order is not built on suspicion, Derek replied. Order is built on responsible leadership. He let the words sink in before adding, Meet me in my office in 10 minutes. Malcolm stiffened, the implication unmistakable. Yes, sir. Without another word, Derek turned and left the break room. His footsteps echoed down the hallway, leaving Malcolm standing in the center of the room with humiliation clinging to him like a heavy shadow. The other employees gradually dispersed. Some avoided looking at him entirely. Others shook their heads as they walked out. The rumors he had spent so much energy spreading now crumbled beneath the truth. Michaela had not heard the confrontation itself. She had been down the hall updating a security patch for an internal tool. But she happened to pass by the break room just as employees were exiting with hushed voices and surprised expressions. She slowed her steps and caught fragments of their whispered recounts. Derek walked in. He shut Malcolm down. He told him to match her performance. He is calling him into his office. Michaela paused near the doorway, out of sight, piecing the details together. She understood immediately what had happened. She felt the truth settle into her mind, like a puzzle finally completing. Her father had defended her, not as his daughter, but as an employee who had earned her place. She tried to maintain her composure as she walked back toward her workstation, but she felt something warm bloom in her chest. Not pride in herself, although she certainly felt that too. It was deeper. It was the feeling of long-standing validation, the kind that grows over years of effort and sacrifice. She sat at her desk and brought her terminal back to life. As she resumed typing, she overheard footsteps approaching. Two co-workers passed her row, whispering about the upcoming meeting between Malcolm and Derek. Michaela could not help it. Her lips curved into a wide, triumphant grin. She hid it quickly, but the moment belonged to her. After all the whispers, after all the doubt, after all the unnecessary tasks meant to undermine her, the truth had risen to the surface exactly as her father taught her it would. Silence cannot hide the truth forever. Karma always wins. But she did not celebrate. She simply returned her focus to the code on her screen. She had earned her new role, and she intended to honor it. Down the hall, Malcolm walked slowly toward Derek's office. Every step sounded like a fading echo of the authority he once believed he possessed. Employees avoided meeting his eyes as he passed. Michaela watched him from a distance, her expression calm, steady, and unbothered. Justice, she realized, did not always need an audience. Sometimes it only needed time. Derek Johnson's office sat at the very end of the executive wing, a long hallway lined with framed patents, awards, and early product prototypes that represented the growth of J-Tech systems. The walk to that office had humbled many employees over the years, but none as sharply as it humbled Malcolm on that day. He approached the door with stiff shoulders and a thin layer of tension that clung to him like a second skin. The gold nameplate glimmered in the light. Derek Johnson, Chief Executive Officer. Malcolm knocked softly. Enter, Derek said from inside. He pushed the door open and stepped into a room filled with quiet authority. The office was large but cleanly organized, dominated by a long mahogany desk. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the skyline of Houston, the sun glowing faintly through a haze of early afternoon light. Derek sat with his hands folded, his expression calm but unreadable. Take a seat, he said. Malcolm obeyed, lowering himself into the chair opposite the desk. His mind raced with potential consequences: a demotion, a formal reprimand, termination. Every possibility weighed on him. Derek did not speak right away. He let silence fill the space between them, a silence heavy enough to make Malcolm shift uncomfortably. Finally, Derek leaned forward. I want you to explain your behavior, he said. Not with excuses, with truth. Malcolm swallowed. Sir, I believed that something unfair was happening in this department. Based on what evidence? Derek asked. Malcolm hesitated again. He could not mention the ice cream shop without admitting he followed employees after hours. He could not fabricate proof. All he had were assumptions that now felt flimsy under the weight of scrutiny. I saw patterns, he said carefully. I saw that Michaela was promoted quickly. I saw that she received a raise without a formal review. It seemed irregular. Her work was exceptional, Derek replied. The raise was awarded based on merit. Her promotion was given because she demonstrated leadership, skill, and initiative. You saw only what you wanted to see. Malcolm's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Derek continued. You spread rumors without facts. You assigned busy work that slowed down projects. You let personal suspicion override your responsibility as a leader. Derek paused before adding, this company cannot function with leadership that acts from ego instead of fairness. Malcolm felt the words hit him with the precision of a surgical cut. I understand, he said quietly. No, Derek said. You do not understand. Not yet. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city that had shaped both his company and his daughter. When I built J-Tech Systems, he said, I built it with values that mattered. Discipline, integrity, accountability. None of those things allow room for assumptions disguised as truth. He turned back toward Malcolm. You will undergo leadership retraining. Every decision you make for the next 90 days will be reviewed by upper management. If your performance does not improve, you will not remain in a management role. The statement landed like a verdict. Yes, sir, Malcolm said. Derek nodded. You may go. Malcolm rose from the chair. For a moment he looked as if he wanted to defend himself further, but the weight of the situation pinned him silent. He walked to the door with slow steps, opened it, and exited without another word. When he disappeared down the hall, Derek exhaled and rubbed his temples. He hated moments like these, but leadership demanded accountability, even when the conversations were difficult. Outside the office, Michaela sat at her new workstation, preparing documentation for the performance optimization unit she would soon lead. She did not know every detail of the conversation, but she knew enough to understand that her father had handled the problem exactly as a CEO should. She appreciated him deeply for that, but she also appreciated herself. All her life, she had walked the difficult road that Derek had set before her. He had refused to make her journey easy, and at times that frustrated her. Birthday gifts replaced with lessons, allowances replaced with chores, achievements met with calm nods instead of lavish rewards. Yet those same lessons gave her strength, discipline, and patience. They taught her to work without expecting shortcuts. They gave her the calm she needed to handle Malcolm's unfair assignments without losing her composure. After years of questioning her father's tough love, she finally understood the truth. He had prepared her for moments like this. As she sorted through her project files, she heard footsteps. Derek approached her workstation, but not too close. He always maintained the professional distance they agreed upon. To the rest of the office, it looked like a standard check-in from the CEO. He kept his voice even. How is the transition going? Michaela kept her expression neutral. The team is organizing documentation. Our first optimization review is scheduled for next week. Good, Derek said. Keep me updated. He moved to walk away, but she spoke softly, her voice low enough that only he could hear. Thank you. He paused. A gentle understanding crossed his eyes, though he kept his face professional. Continue doing good work, he said. Then he walked away, leaving her with a warm steadiness in her chest. Michaela returned to her tasks, but inside she carried a quiet, glowing certainty. Her father had done what was right. She had done what was right. And that truth was louder than any rumor. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly in the office. Conversations were soft, cautious, and careful. People walked with a new awareness of the fragile balance between truth and assumption. The hallway near the executive wing felt especially tense, as if the walls still echoed with the confrontation they had witnessed earlier. Michaela focused on her tasks with renewed clarity. She organized her project notes, scheduled meetings with her soon-to-be team members, and mapped out ideas for the optimization unit. Her mind was steady, yet a small part of her replayed the rumors that had once floated through the office. She had heard the whispers. She had felt the stares. She knew the doubt that some had cast on her without ever seeing her work. But she refused to let those shadows define her. She had learned long ago that strength did not come from trying to convince others of her worth. It came from showing it through consistent effort. Late in the afternoon, she stepped away from her desk to refill her water bottle in the break room. The room was nearly empty. Only one coworker lingered near the refrigerator, glancing at Michaela with a hesitant expression before offering a small nod of respect. "Congratulations on your promotion," the coworker said. "You earned it." Michaela nodded in appreciation. "Thank you." The simple acknowledgement felt more meaningful than any long speech or public praise. It was recognition based on truth. As she walked back toward her desk, she passed Malcolm's office. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, he sat hunched over his computer, shoulders heavy, face drawn with the weight of his earlier choices. He did not look up as she passed. Michaela did not pause, and she did not gloat. She simply continued walking, her steps steady and her thoughts calm. Back at her workstation, she settled in and reviewed her progress for the day. When everything looked aligned with her goals, she finally leaned back in her chair and let her mind drift for a moment. She thought of Houston, the city that watched her grow from a determined child into a woman capable of holding her own. She thought of all the late nights studying, the early mornings at the office, the challenges she faced without complaint. She thought of her father and the hard lessons he believed would shape her future. She smiled softly. Every Friday ice cream outing, every moment of discipline, every hour of effort, all of it had prepared her for this moment. Soon, the office lights began to dim as employees headed home. Michaela powered down her computer, gathered her purse, and stepped into the elevator. When the doors slid open on the lobby floor, she saw Derek waiting near the entrance. To any observer, it looked like two colleagues heading out at the same time, but the faint warmth in Derek's eyes told the real story. "Ready?" he asked softly. Michaela nodded. "Yes." They walked out into the warm Houston evening. The sky glowed with streaks of gold and soft crimson, reflecting off the tall buildings that surrounded them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply walked with the comfortable familiarity of two people who knew each other deeply. When they reached the sidewalk near Sweet Cloud Creamery, Derek paused. "It is Friday," he said. "We can stop for ice cream if you would like." Michaela allowed herself a small laugh. "Of course." They entered the shop, greeted by the familiar cool air and the scent of vanilla and caramel. They chose their usual booth in the back, the booth that had watched her grow year after year. Derek sat across from her the same way he always had, steady and unwavering. When the server approached, Derek asked the familiar question, "What flavor today, KK?" Michaela felt a swell of emotion rise in her chest. She glanced out the window at the city she loved, then back at the father who had never stopped believing in her potential. "Strawberry swirl," she said, smiling. They ate their ice cream in quiet contentment. She did not bring up the events of the day, and neither did he. They did not need to speak about it. Everything important had already been understood. As evening settled around them, Michaela thought about the lesson she would carry with her for the rest of her life. Karma always wins. It may take time. It may take patience. It may come quietly instead of loudly. But truth always rises. She had not reached her new position because of her last name. She had not earned her place because someone had held a door open for her. She had stood tall because she worked hard, remained patient, and refused to let bitterness take root in her heart. Her family name had nothing to do with the skill she carried in her hands or the discipline she carried in her spirit. What mattered most was her integrity. As she finished the last bite of ice cream, she knew with full certainty that her future in Houston was bright, wide, and waiting for her. She had earned every step she took, and she would continue earning every step forward.